So let's take a look at the interfacing and stabilizers that you'll need for your Allure. This here is woven fuse. It's a fusible woven interfacing. If you don't have woven fuse, you can substitute that with Pellon Shapeflex SF101. They're woven fusible interfacings made from cotton. As you can see there, the rough side is the fusible side. The difference between Shapeflex and the woven fuse is that the woven fuse is slightly heavier, and I also find that it fuses easier and wrinkles less than the SF101, so that's why I prefer it. We also need some soft and stable. This is a foam sew-in interfacing. As you can see, it's fairly thick and it creates a lot of structure for your bag. I don't particularly like the fusible foams, but you can use that if you prefer. But for this bag I'm using the sew-in soft and stable, and I'm combining it with your Decaville Light. This is the Decaville Light. When you use the two products together, you get a really nice structured bag. If you want to use something heavier than cork, such as a thicker vinyl or leather, I suggest that you leave off the Decaville Light because it gets really stiff and structured and very hard to turn if there's a lot of thicknesses. It's the same with the fabric. If you use something heavier than a quilting fabric for your exterior, then I suggest that you also leave off the Decaville Light. Otherwise you might have a whale of a time trying to turn it. For the base, I am using Decaville Heavy. As you can see, it's thicker and not as bendy as the Light. Now if you don't have the Decaville Heavy for the base, you can substitute with 2 layers of the Decaville Light, or you can use the Peltex. It's very similar in thicknesses and structure to the Decaville Heavy, but it tends to wrinkle more. I don't know if you can see that there, whereas the Decaville tends to be more flowy and does not wrinkle. But when you're using it in a base or in situations where you're not going to have it contacting with your outer fabric, then it's not really a problem. So you can use that instead of the Decaville Heavy if that's what you have. If you don't have Decaville Light and you need to substitute for your exterior body, you can use this Pellon 808-809 substitute. It's a stiff non-woven interfacing, and it will do the trick. The Decaville Light does not wrinkle. It looks really good when you've fused it to your fabric and then added your foam on top. You get a beautiful smooth finish. This tends to wrinkle more, so it's a bit of a trade-off. It's cheaper, but it doesn't look as good. For your flap, you'll need some fleece. Here we have some Thermolam Plus. I use the fleece in combination with the Decaville Light in the flap. I find the two used together gives a really nice sturdy flap and tends to hide if you've got things like keys in your pocket which tend to bulk out. It kind of smooths it out and doesn't look so obvious that there's keys in there. So it gives a really nice finish. That's your fleece. Okay, so let's look at the hardware that you'll need for your bag. Some rectangular rings, 2 of them, at 25mm 1 inch, and a matching slider, 25mm 1 inch, and that is the inner measurement. And you'll need a strap bridge at the same measurement, 1 inch, 25mm, in that distance there. You'll need 4 bag feet. These are 12mm 1/2 inch bag feet. You can vary that, it won't matter if you don't have that size on hand and you have a different size you want to use. You need a twist lock. I'm just using this small one here because that's what I have on hand in this colour. You can also use any size that will fit on your trim. A big one would probably look really nice, I think. Some rivets, 6 9mm cap with an 10mm stem and 3 at 9mm cap with an 8mm stem. I don't happen to have the 9mm cap with the 8mm stem, so I'm just going to use what I have, which are these. And optional is a tassel cap if you want to make a tassel. Oh, I forgot to mention, you also need a strap end, which is this little fellow here, which comes with a couple of little screws. Okay, so you're going to need 2 zippers for your bag, one for your exterior flap pocket. This one here, it's a number 5 nylon, and I've used the one that has teeth that look like metal, so they're really good, but they're actually nylon. They're easy to sew and they don't break any needles if you accidentally hit them. You need that in a 9-inch 23cm length or longer, like this, then cut to size. You'll need a number 3 dress zipper, 30cm, 12 inches long, which we'll also cut to the exact size, removing those metal bits on the end there. To make life easier, I use a double-sided wonder tape for attaching zippers and things. This one you can sew through, so it won't gum up your needle if you happen to sew into it. I do have a cheaper version on hand, which is one that I would not recommend sewing through. I use it in any areas where I'm not going to be sewing through it, and I don't recommend sewing through a tape if it's not a specific sewing one, because I've done that before and I ended up having to spend $100 getting my machine cleaned up because it totally gummed it up and it's seized up completely, and $100 later I had it all clean and going again. So that's a lesson learnt. I only use a specific sewing one where I know I'm going to sew through it. A few little optional extras which I like to use in this bag is some glue. This is EcoWorld water-based contact adhesive. You can use other fabric glue. I'm just trialing this. I'm using a black edge finish onto the cork strap, so I'm just going to apply that with this lovely looking little gadget here, which is a roller pen. You just dip it in the paint and then roll it on the edges of the strap just to give it a nice neat finish. I have this roller, which when I glue the 2 pieces together I will roll the strap just to make sure it's all contacted and glued together nice and firmly. And that's my paintbrush for applying the glue. So once you've printed your pattern pieces, then you need to assemble any of the pieces that are bigger than the sheet of paper. So to do that, we just match up the numbers and match up these lines, make sure that they're meeting up, stick them together with sticky tape. Then just layered, I've cut the extra paper off one piece and then just laid it on top of the other one like that, and stick it down, and we'll cut that out. Okay, so for your pattern pieces, when you're cutting and you see reversed, cut one interfacing reversed, it means that you have to flip your pattern piece over to cut. So you have your interfacing right side towards you, so that's the smooth side, the glue side is down. You cut your interfacing out like so, and then when you've cut your fabric, so that's the right side up, and you cut your fabric, when you place the 2 pieces together with the glue side up, they will match, and you can stick wrong side of the interfacing to the wrong side of your fabric. So you need to fuse those together. Just grab your iron and press. This is woven fuse interfacing that I'm using, and it's very easy to get it to stick. You can check, make sure it's not peeling up anywhere. If it is, then you just go back and give it another press. and you're good to go. Okay, so for your zipper pocket A and zipper pocket B, you need to cut one lining and one interfacing reverse. For your phone pocket, you need to cut 2 exterior and 2 interfacing pieces. I've already fused those. For your zipper pocket face, so there's your interior zipper pocket. You need to cut 2 lining and 2 interfacing and fuse those together. And the zipper pocket A and zipper pocket B are the ones that are used inside the flap. For your body exterior, you need to cut 2 fabric pieces from your exterior piece, and they need to be cut on the fold. So you fold your fabric and then place it on the fold and then cut. So you need 2 exterior fabrics and 2 interfacing, and as you can see here, when I've fused my fabric, the interfacing didn't shrink but the fabric did a bit, so it doesn't matter because it'll be inside the seams, but I'm not going to trim that off because then it would be the wrong size, because you can see here that the Decaville is the right size. It does not shrink, Decaville. So with the Decaville light, you need to cut 2 using your template. And then that is fused onto the wrong side, the interfacing side of your body exterior. When you fuse your Decaville, allow about half an hour or so on your ironing board for it to each piece to cool before you move it. That just makes it set, the glue set really well, otherwise sometimes it tends to come away from your fabric if you don't allow enough setting time. But if it's set properly and you don't move it in that setting time, it just never comes away. It's really good stuff. For your base stabiliser, you need to cut a piece of Decaville 1 or heavy, which I've done there. If you don't have the heavy version, you can use 2 pieces of the Decaville light or Peltex. For your body lining, you need to cut 2 lining and 2 interfacing. You cut them on the fold, like that. As you can see, all these pieces have already been fused. So you need to assemble your pattern piece to make your body trim. So do that, cut your body trim. When I cut the cork, I just put the... I'm going bald, there's hairs everywhere. I always just trace around it on the wrong side and then cut out. I use my rotary cutter for the straight bits and scissors if there's any curves. But I take my time with that, because if you take your time and get a nice neat edge, it does look better. If you want to make a tassel, then you need to cut one of these tassel pieces. So with your zipper trim, you're going to want to cut one out as carefully and neatly as you can. And then for the second one, what I do, so I make sure it matches, is I grab some double-sided tape. This is my cheaper version. I'm just going to stick that down, and then I'm going to go away and very carefully cut that out so that it all matches nice and evenly. Okay, so now you've got your zipper trims cut. I suggest that you interface them by trimming off where we've got the stitching line. Just trim that off and back so that the interfacing is smaller, and then you can just fuse that on into place. But it'll stop your cork from stretching when you're stitching it to your bag. You can also use this product here, which is a cold tape or cloth tape with glue on the back. I just like to stick that down in the area away from where I'm stitching. It'll just stop the cork from stretching when you're attaching it to the bag. I try to keep it out of any stitching area, just so I don't gum up the needle. Got one flap trim, which I've stuck mine on with double-sided tape to stick it down so I could get it cut nice and neat. And you need 4 strap tabs, which I've done there, and I've already applied the interfacing, and my strap pieces, and I've also applied the interfacing onto those already. Now the reason I cut the interfacing smaller than the strap is so that once you've glued your strap pieces together, you do not see any interfacing poking through on those edges. This is especially important if you're not going to use edge paint or anything on the sides of those straps. And sometimes if you cut it the same size as the strap, you're not really accurate and a bit of interfacing pokes out at the sides or whatever, and that's not a good look. So this is the best way to do it, to avoid those issues. So if you're wanting to add some extra pockets to your bag, you can do so using Pocket Supplement A. You might have it already, or if not, it's just a couple of bucks in the shop. For the small pocket, you need to cut 1 lining, 1 contrast and 2 interfacing. As you can see there, I've already fused those. Same with the large pocket. You need to cut 1 lining, 1 contrast and 2 interfacing. That one's cut with your fabric on the fold. Okay, so for your flap you need to cut 2 exterior and 2 interfacing pieces using the template provided. This is just a placement guide, so just leave, you don't have to worry about that at this point. So cut 2 fabrics and 2 interfacing, and as you can see here, my fabric when I fused has shrunk a little bit, but that's fine. I'm not going to trim the interfacing away, that can just stay there because it'll be inside the seam allowance. But I don't want to trim them off because then the pieces will be too small and my seams will get thrown out. So I leave that as is. And then from your fleece and your Decaville light, you need to cut 1 whole Decaville light using a complete template like that, and that gets fused down onto your interfacing. And then for your second flap piece, which will be the exterior piece, you need to cut a fleece and another Decaville light with that template piece removed. like that. Make sure you're putting it down onto the right side of the fleece and the Decaville light. That's the non-sticky side, so that when you stick it down, it's going to look like that. It's very important that this goes this way, so that when you flip it over, it's matching that area there, like that. So the fleece is stuck down on top of the Decaville light. Okay, so now retrieve your two exterior body pieces, and we're going to put those right sides together and pin the bottom straight edge here. Now we'll pop over to the machine and stitch that seam. Okay, so now we're going to sew this seam using a 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Like that, and now we're going to go and press that seam open like that. Okay, so now we're just going to press our seam open. I always like to press from both sides. And now we're going to do our soft and stable. Okay, so retrieve your soft and stable, and we're going to pin this with our body exterior assembly wrong side down, so that you end up with your soft and stable layered on top of your Decaville, and pin into place. I like to pin in the direction in which I'm going to be sewing. Just makes it easier. Make sure it's nicely stretched out and taut, which is pretty easy with the Decaville in place. So we need to just cut all the way around our piece. So I'm cutting along the edge of the interfacing. I'm not cutting it off because my fabric shrunk. And once you've cut everything out, then we're going to go over to the sewing machine and zigzag all the way around the edge. If you haven't got zigzag, just use a straight stitch, 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the edge, just to fasten your soft and stable into place. Okay, so now we're going to zigzag our soft and stable into place. turn my machine on, that usually helps the situation. Set it to zigzag. Okay, so now we're going to attach our soft and stable. And there we have it. We have our soft and stable attached to our fabric. Okay, so now that we have our soft and stable attached to our body exterior, we need to grab our base stabiliser, and I've used Decaville 1 Heavy, the thicker one. If you haven't got that, you can use Decaville Light or Peltex. Just centre that in between there and line up those edges and fuse into place. I like to use a press when I fuse Decaville, so I'm just going to pop away and do that. And I like to leave it to cool for about half an hour. Okay, so now we're going to put some glue onto the strap tabs. Just put a piece of scrap paper down on my work surface because I'm a messy glue person. So just now set those aside so that the glue can get tacky, and once the glue gets tacky then we'll stick them together. So now we're just going to repeat and put glue on the strap pieces as well. Okay, set that aside. Okay, I'll set those aside. Once your pieces are tacky to touch, just pop them together line the edges up very carefully. And then roll with your roller. There, we'll set those aside, and once they've dried then we'll put some edge coat on them, and that's optional. Now I'll do the strap. And set it aside to dry. Here's my dog, he's got something to say. Okay, we'll just set that aside to dry. Okay, so for my cork I'm going to put some edge paint on it. I'm using this black edge leather finish paint and this roller pen. So I'm just going to go ahead and have a crack at it. Now this is the first time I've ever done this, so if I make a mess, don't judge me. So I've just finished edge coating all my strap tabs, my strap, my zipper trim and my body trim, and I must say I have learnt a thing or two. One of them is that I'm very messy, as you can see, and another thing would be not to attempt your first try on something that you're videoing or planning to show the world. Experimentation first would be a better idea. Practice, practice, practice. But anyway, never mind. We'll run with it. I'm sure it will look okay when it's finished. We'll see. Hey. Okay, so now that we have our edge coat and our glue and everything is dry, we can do some top stitching. I'm going to use my compensating foot, which is this one here. It's a 1/8 of an inch compensating foot. Just makes it very easy to get a nice even stitch. And I've also lengthened my stitch to 3.1. There we have our strap all done. And yes, my edge coat isn't perfect, but that's all right. I'm going to run with it anyway. Okay, so now we grab our strap tabs and our 2 rectangular rings, some glue, and we're going to put some glue on, well, choose which side you feel might be the wrong side. Just have a look, maybe one side is nicer than the other, and stick some glue on there, leaving about an inch or so in the middle free of glue. Carefully slide your rectangular ring over that. Do the same with the other one. Maybe it's easier to put the ring on first. That way you can find out where the middle is. Now, how clever is that? Now in the case of this glue, I've got to leave it until it goes tacky, and then when that goes tacky I will put the 2 pieces together and put a weight on it. So let's disappear for a little while. Meanwhile I'll put my glue lid back on so my glue doesn't dry up. Now that's smart, isn't it? And I'll go and wash my brush too. Okay, so now that our glue is all tacky, I'm just going to line these edges up and make sure it's all even and press. Same with this one. So now I'm just going to put some weight on that until... Okay, so I'll just put this weight on here and leave that to dry, and then we'll come back and stitch as close as we can to the rectangular rings. Okay, so now that our glue has dried on our strap tabs, we're going to stitch as close as we can to the rectangular ring. I'm going to use my zipper foot to do that. And stitch. I'm using my top stitch length of 3.1. Do the same with this second one. Pull that through a bit. And there we have our stitched strap tabs. So retrieve your exterior body and your cork piece, and we're just going to run some double-sided tape along these edges just to stop it from shifting when we sew. If you don't use double-sided tape, you can glue it down. Now if your body exterior piece has a front and a back, make sure that you put that cut out towards the front. I'm just going to lay that on, matching up those edges and those. And grab some clips. Don't worry if there's a little bit sticking out the sides there. Sometimes the fabric shrinks a bit, and mine has, as you can see. So doesn't matter, just don't worry about that. And then just use some clips to clip it into place. Now we'll go over to the sewing machine. You're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch round there and along here, and the rest I stitch at about 1/4 of an inch just to baste it on, and then make sure that if it's not quite meeting up to the edge, it's going to catch it by using that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we're going to fasten our trim to our body. So I'm going to start over here with my compensating foot, 1/8 of an inch compensating foot, so I can stitch along here and around there using my top stitch length of 3.1. Helps if you haven't got a heap of things behind your sewing machine for your body to catch onto. To flip that around, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch along this other side. so now I'm going to swap to my 1/4 inch compensating foot. Going to stitch the other sides in place. Oops. Helps if you lift your foot up first. So now I've got that side attached, I'll just go around and do the same again on the other side. There. And now we have our cork attached nicely to our body. Okay, so now we're going to install our bag feet into the bottom of our bag. There's the bottom of our bag. There's the front of our bag with the cutout there. So now grab a ruler and we're going to measure 5 centimeters in from the edge, which is 2 inches, and just draw a line on your Decaville. Do the same on this side. Now I'll measure 3 centimeters or 1 1/4 inch from each long side of the Decaville. Now we'll go away and punch holes where those lines intersect for your bag feet. Okay, so as you can see, I have punched holes in my Decaville, well, right through my body for my bag feet. So we're just going to stick those in. Flip it over. That one came out. You can do one at a time if you find that easier. I just prise that open a little bit. Squish that down. Sometimes the bag feet don't come with washers. You can use a bit of that 7 mesh canvas if you have that on hand, or just an ordinary round washer. Pinch one from your hubby's work shed. But the washer really does kind of make it a bit more secure. And now we'll just add some scraps of interfacing, and if you've been making bags for any length of time, you've got plenty of those. Just helps protect your lining from wear. Add a couple of pieces. And there we go. We have our bag feet. So now we need to install our twist lock, which goes in the front of the bag, but I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to grab my pattern piece and very carefully place that onto our body. Now I'll just work out which ones of those holes that's going to go into them two there. So just going to mark that like that. Grabbing my nice stitch rip. From the front, I'm just going to check. That. So I'm going to put some glue. First I'm going to put some fray stop on my holes. And I'm going to put a bit of glue onto my twist lock. Not that much. Oh. I told you I'm messy with glue. Just going to smear that around. Flip it over. Okay, I'm just going to grab a couple of scraps of the Decaville light. Just for a bit of extra support. Normally I would do this on a harder surface than this, but that gives you the idea. Then I'm going to cover that with a piece of interfacing. Normally what I do is I just hang the twist lock over the side of the ironing board just to make it easier to fuse the scrap. Hang on, I'll show you. So I just place the twist lock so it's over the side of the ironing board, so it's nice and flat. And there we go, we have our twisty lock part in our body and our bag feet. So we'll set that aside for the moment. Retrieve your 23 centimetre 9-inch number 5 zip or longer, whatever you have. And then we're going to measure and cut that at 8 3/4 of an inch. So we want to cut this metal bit off the end there, so I'm just going to mark that. Make sure you leave your zipper pull within that distance, don't cut it off, otherwise you'll have to fiddle it back on again. So we want 8 3/4 of an inch or 22 centimetres. Okay, so I'm just going to move that up there so I get it more accurate. And cut the metal bit off this end. Now we'll just go over to the sewing machine and I'm just going to stitch along there just to fasten that securely, and we'll do a couple of stitches on that end just to make sure it doesn't come off. Okay, so I'm just going to run a few stitches along the end of this zip to keep the ends from coming apart, about 6 mils, 1/4 of an inch from the end. Now I'm just going to go slow so I don't break a needle. Do that on the other end just to make sure it stays put. There we go. Retrieve your zipper trim and figure out which side is the wrong side, if there's one side you prefer over the other. And then we're just going to run a little bit of double-sided tape, about 1.5 inches down there. Now we're going to fold that over by 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches. Stick that down. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. Okay, so now that we've stuck down the other side of the zipper trim, we're going to stitch 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the edge, from the starting out here and stitching down to the point where the trim starts to shape outwards. We're just going to stitch across there and back up to the other side. My stitch length is 3.1 and it's 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Okay. Retrieve your exterior flat piece, the one with your cutout, and we're going to grab our pattern piece. I've already cut the zipper window out of there, as you can see. We want to mark this placement so that we can get our zipper trim positioned correctly. So I'm just going to clip this on here to make sure it stays put. And I'm just going to grab my chalk I'm going to colour this window in. This fabric gets removed, so you don't have to worry that you're messing up good fabric here. But once I have that successfully marked, then I will remove this pattern piece. And I'm going to be positioning that there, like that. Okay, so now I'm going to run some double-sided tape down my zipper trim, just to hold it onto the flap while I top stitch it in place. Grab my flap. Now we're not sticking this end down because we're not going to stitch it. So now position that over where we've previously marked. Make it nice and even. There we go. So now we're going to go over to the machine. We're going to stitch starting here, 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Going to go down to that previous stitching, stitch across there and back up the other side, well, to there, to hold it in place. Do not stitch this window at this point. So now we're going to stitch our zipper trim onto our flap, 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the edge and top stitch length of 3.1. got my wrong glasses on, and boy do I notice it too. So now that we've stitched our zipper trim into place, we're going to trim this extra piece off. Just level with the top edge of your flap. And now I'm just going to grab a stitch rip and make a slit in here so I can get at it. And now I'm going to trim this back. Bit stuck down from my double-sided tape, so I'll just prise that off a bit. I just want to trim it back away from this cork underneath. I think I'll just slip that along, don't go too far. Double-sided tape doesn't hold when you want it to hold. When you don't want it to hold, it's tough. So just getting rid of some of this. Really stuck good. Must be a good double-sided tape. The purpose of this is just to get it out of the road so that when you put your zipper pocket in place, you're not going to see any of this showing through on that side. So there, doesn't have to be neat, no one's ever going to see it. So now we'll go away and make our pocket ready to attach to this, so we'll just set that aside for now. Grab your zipper pocket A piece and your double-sided tape, and we'll run a line of that along the top edge on the right side. Now grab your prepared number 5 zipper and place it wrong side down onto the right side of your zipper pocket A. And press firmly to stick it down. So now we're going to stitch 6 mils or 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape all the way along there. So now I'm just going to change to my 1/4 of an inch compensating foot. 1/4 of an inch, 6 mils. Don't have to use a compensating foot, of course. And we're going to stitch the entire length of the zip. 2.4 stitch length. You may have to move that out of the road if your foot gets in the way of it. Like that. Now we're going to go over to this ironing board and press our pocket away from the zipper. So now that we have stitched our zipper into place, we need to press the pocket away from the zipper teeth. Like that. Now grabbing zipper pocket B, we're just going to grab the double-sided tape and run a strip along the top edge. Press hard to get it to stick properly. Taking your zipper pocket A piece again, we're going to put that right sides together down on top of that double-sided tape, lining those top edges, and stick into place. Now the zipper pull is over here on the right hand side, as you can see. So now we're going to go back over to the sewing machine and stitch again 6 mils 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. So now we're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch, 6 mils away from the zipper tape. Like that. Now we're going to go back over to the ironing board and press that side away from the tape as well. Okay, so now that we've stitched that, we're going to press that second side away from the zipper tape. So now we need our flat piece and our zipper pocket. Turn that over to the wrong side. We're going to run a strip of double-sided tape down in that space there along the zipper trim area. Press it firmly to make it stick good. I always have trouble starting these things, and I find if I scrape my fingernails along the right on the end, it usually helps. So now put your zipper pocket on your table wrong sides up with the zipper right side up. Zipper pull over here on the right. Now we'll grab our flap again and we're going to center that over the zipper. Make sure that zipper pull is out of the road. Like so. Press it down firmly when you've got it even, which I haven't. Now we're just going to grab a couple of pins to hold this zipper pocket up and away so it doesn't get into our stitching when we attach the trim. And as you can see, that pocket's got to be down there, so I'm going to pin that to hold that in place. like that. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch around our zipper pocket window. So I'm going to put my zipper foot back on again. And stitch around our zipper pocket window. Three mils, 1/8 of an inch. Top stitch length of 3.1. Making sure that our pocket's kept out of the road. Bulky zipper head. I'm just going to leave my tails long so that I can pull them through to the other side and knot them off for a better finish. But there we have our zipper windows. So now that we've stitched our zipper trim into place around the window there, we're going to flip it over and we're going to put these pocket edges together. We're going to pin them, smooth that down first. Look at all this fluff. And then just pin these edges together. Now we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way around our pocket back up to the other side to finish off our pocket. So I'm just going to change back to my regular foot. And I'm going to open this back up there like that. Stitch length 2.4. Normal seam allowance of about 1 centimetre. Obviously it doesn't really matter here inside the pocket. Bend that back onto the road. Just try and keep that well bent back out of the road. And there, we've stitched our pocket. Nice zipper pocket. Okay, so now we want to install our strap bridge. So we need to place that right up against where the zipper trim starts shaping upwards. So we put that into place and we mark around it, and then in the center of that mark draw our little holes where we're going to punch. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but I'm going to go away and I'm going to punch holes in those spots there so that I can install that. I just might mention, you might just want to check, put your trim into place and make sure that your strap bridge is not going to be interfering with your trim, and it won't. So now that I've punched my holes, I'm just going to add some fray stopper. This fabric really tends to fray bad. So now comes the fiddly part. We need to install this. Put on our backing plate. I'm sorry if my head gets in the road. I'll try and keep my head out of the road. And I've got to try and catch my thing here. Like I said, it's a little bit fiddly. I just kept seeming to miss it. That's caught it. Now we have to do the same on this side. There. We now have that in place. We'll add the end piece later. So now retrieve your second flat piece, and we're going to put that right sides together with your first flat piece. Bend your zipper trim up so that it gets out of the road of your seam, and stick a clip there to hold that, and clip the flap together all the way around. Lining up your raw edges. Use a couple of extra clips around here because that's putting pressure on it. So now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch right around there and leave that open for turning. So now we're going to stitch our flap. We're stitching using a 1 centimetre seam allowance. That's 3/8 of an inch. I like to hold the flap level and it doesn't pull the two seams apart. so now we have to do some trimming and turn our flap right sides out. Okay, so now that we have stitched our flap, we're going to layer the seams. That just means we're trimming the layers back so that they're not the same size. I'm going to trim them down a little bit as well. I'm going to trim it back to about 6 mils, 1/4 of an inch. To lay that, we'll just trim that back. Just the one layer. See that you can see that it's a different length, it just sits flatter. Now just grab my pinking shears. I also like to just go around the curved areas with the pinking shears, making sure not to snip into the stitching. Like that. Now we're just going to turn our flap right sides out. Now we're going to do some pressing. Just make sure it's all pushed out right. And we'll give it a press. Okay, so now I'm just going to base this top edge of our flap using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Just to hold all the layers together. Okay, so just get this messy bits out of the way. Grab your flap. position into place. And then add some weights. I'm just going to take it away and add some weights and allow it to dry. And when it's dry, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I'm going to top stitch my flap now, the trim. I'm going to start up here and stitch all the way around here, up and down around here and back up to the starting point. I'm using my zipper foot. It's a nice little narrow 3mm 1/8 of an inch zipper foot, so it'll allow me to get nice and close to this zipper trim. And yeah, let's do it. Using a 3.1 stitch length. Go around the corners slowly. Okay, just mentioning here that while I've used a colour to match my trim on the top side, on the bottom side I've used a colour in my bobbin to match my exterior, because you will see the stitching lines. Okay, so now it's time to mark the position of the hole for your twist lock. I've just grabbed, well, what's left of my flap trim and I'm just going to position that on there, and I'm going to poke a hole right in the middle of that, oops, like that, and just mark the center spot. Take my trim away. I'm just going to use the backing plate, which will be going underneath. I'm going to use that here just to use that as a template to mark where I'm going to cut my hole. Like that. Now I advise that you use punches to punch the hole. It's very hard to cut that with a pair of scissors. If you haven't got a shaped punch like this, which I have here, then I recommend just using a round one and then chip away at it till you get your hole. But I have this set which has got quite a range of different shapes and sizes, and I think this one here seems to be a pretty good fit. So I will use that one to punch my hole. So with the magic of video, I shall just disappear and go and do that. Okay, so now that I have made my hole and checked for fit, and I can see that it's all good, I am going to put some glue onto my metal bits and some fray stopper around this fabric. You don't need a ton of glue because you don't want it oozing out over your fabric. I like to make sure I get it on the whole part, on that rim there. Now the template part goes at the back. Probably should just add the whole part first, and I did it back to front. Typical of me. Do everything backwards. Get the glue out of the road. Put that into place, make sure it's sitting straight. Grab the whole thing, flop it over. Some of these twist locks have screws, so yours might have a screw, which is fine. Mine doesn't, so I need to bend these prongs. Gently does it. And there, now we can set that aside to dry. So now we're going to attach one of our phone pocket pieces. So just grab one. They're both the same, so I don't need to pick one. Find the center top. If you've got a directional fabric, it matters. Doesn't matter with the fabric I'm using. And we'll find the center top of the flap. Now we're just going to grab some clips and clip it to hold in place, lining up those two marks. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and baste using a 6mm 1/4 inch seam. So now we're going to baste our phone pocket to our flap using a 1/4 inch seam. So now retrieve your body assembly, and on the back, that's the front obviously, on the back we're just going to mark the halfway point. Just grab a ruler. find the back center point. Grab your second phone pocket piece. Just going to fold that in half and mark the top if you've got directional fabric, the top. I'm going to place that right sides together. Clip to hold. Now I'm going to pop over to the sewing machine and stitch that with a 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch seam. Okay, so now we're just going to stitch this seam with a full seam allowance of 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch and stitch length of 2.4 or something similar. Okay, so now we're going to press the pocket away from the body and top stitch along there. I'll just go and give that a press. Okay, so now that we have stitched our phone pocket in place, just going to give that a press away from the body. Okay, so now we're going to go and top stitch that 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the seam. Now we'll grab our phone pocket and body, and I'm trying to stop it from whacking onto the camera. Now we'll stitch with stitch length of 3.1. Don't know how well you can see, but it's 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the seam allowance. Now I'm going to change out my zipper foot. Okay, so I'm just going to put my 1/4 of an inch 6mm compensating foot on. It's just going to help me get a nice even width. Now the reason that I'm doing this is so that later on, when you have assembled your bag, there's going to be top stitching around the bag and this will meet up. It's not actually doing anything construction wise, it's just there for looks. If I didn't have the camera in the road, it would be a lot easier. Okay, so there we have it. So now grab your body piece again and some clips And we're going to clip the sides together. Now make sure you line up your cork or vinyl. We want to make sure that those edges are exactly together. Doesn't matter if it's a little out on the ends, just make sure that those points are meeting. Clip those together. Right sides together. Do the same on this side. Make sure that trim is lining up exactly. Someone scolded me once for putting the clips around the wrong way. The flat side's supposed to go down so it slides along the sewing machine a bit better. There you go. Okay, so now that you've got those clipped together, we're going over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch those two sides. So now I need to get rid of this foot. Okay, so now we're going to stitch this seam with a 10mm or 1 centimetre, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Stitch length of about 2.4. Now we're going to do the same on the other side. 1 centimetre, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Like that. So now that we've stitched both sides, I'm just going to run a second row of stitching just to reinforce that seam right next to the first one, just in from it a little bit, next to it. Okay, so now that we've stitched our sides, we're going to form our corners But what I like to do, and this is optional, but I like to put a bit of double-sided tape into the seam allowance at the corners. This is just to hold the layers together and stop them from slipping apart while you stitch. I use some clips as well, but this just kind of gives it that little bit of extra support. So we press this seam apart just with your fingers. Then we're going to form our corners. Now, I just want to make sure that that cork is sitting nice and flat. I want those edges to align. I'm trying to keep it in the video and it's awkward. Without getting my head in the road. We'll get that all stuck together. Just spread those seams. And I'll stick a couple of clips to hold. Like that. Now turn around and we're going to do the same on this side. Press these seams apart. It's a very structured bag, so everything's very stiff. So now it's a good idea to get in there and make sure those corners are sitting properly with your cork. Line up those layers. Stick a few clips on it to hold it as well. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the machine and stitch each corner. Okay, so now we're going to stitch these corners using a 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stitch length 2.4. If you haven't changed your needle recently, now might be a good time to make sure you're using a nice, fresh, sharp needle because the layers are a bit thick just here. We want to make sure those seams stay open. good to hand crank just over that thick bit. And if it is a bit too thick for your machine, grab a hammer, and not while it's sitting on the machine, mind you, but just give those areas a bit of a whack with the hammer first. You'll be surprised what a difference a few whacks with a hammer can make. Same with the new needle, it can make a world of difference. Now, like the side seams, I also like to stitch these seams twice, so I'll just do that now for this one. Just pretty close to the first stitching. I've broken the thread, so I'll just re-thread that. See, it happens to all of us. Okay, so that's that side done. Just turn around and do the second side. And there we go. We now have our two corner seams stitched. Grabbing your 12-inch, 30cm or longer zip, we're going to trim it so that it's only 11 inches or 28 centimeters long. So I'm just going to make some marks because we want to cut the metal bits off. So let's just say we cut it there. And make sure this zipper head is in the piece that you're keeping, not the piece that you cut off. Just snip that off. Snip that off. Now what I like to do is go to the machine and just stitch 6 mils, 1/4 inch from each end, just to fasten those ends together and also stop you from inadvertently pulling your zipper pull off your zipper, because then it's quite fiddly getting it back on again. So we'll pop over the machine and do that. Now we're just going to stitch 6 mils, 1/4 inch from each end of the zipper. Go back and forward across it a couple of times. Okay, so there we have our zipper stitched off at each end. Grab your interior zipper pocket facing piece, and you need to draw a box, which I've already cheated and done. To do that, I've just folded it in half that way, pressed a crease, folded it in half that way, pressed a crease, and drew a box which is centered left to right. 10 inches or 25.5 centimetres wide by 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch deep. I've drawn a line in the middle and 2 V's on the end. That's our snipping guide. We're going to snip in there when we've got it onto our lining. So we'll grab our body lining piece, just grab one of those, and we need to fold that in half to find the centre. Just press a crease, and we need to measure 2 centimetres. 2 centimetres, 3/4 of an inch. I'm just going to do this to make it easier for me to place my facing. Where's that centre crease? It's just there. So we'll line that up. Grab a couple of pins. And pin that into place. So now we're going to pop over to the sewing machine and stitch our box. With your zipper pocket facing attached, and we're just going to start a little back bit in from the end and using stitch length 2.4. Back stitch and stitch around your zipper box. One more stitch. Oop, I come out too far. Just back stitch into that corner. Notice this one has snipped the corner there, so I'm just going to redo that corner. It's missed the corner, cut across the corner. Now I find a funny quirk with this machine. It doesn't do it on any other machine that I've got, only this one. But when I want to turn a sharp corner like that, I need to bring the needle so that it's coming on the way up again, so it doesn't do that funny cross the corner thing. And then now I can just snip that thread, extra thread away. There. Okay, so now we're going to cut this zipper pocket window, so we'll just take those pins out. Just going to make a little hole with my stitch strip. Get my head out of the video. Now we're just going to snip along the line. Okay, so now we need to press, we're going to feed and press that pocket fabric through to the other side. Then we're going to go and get your zipper pocket ready. Grab one of your interior zipper pocket pieces and we're going to run a strip of double-sided tape along the top of the pocket, along the raw edge. Peel that off. Retrieve your prepared zipper and placing it wrong side down onto the right side of the fabric with the zipper pull on the right hand side. Just press that into place. And then we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch 3 mils or 1/8 of an inch from the zipper teeth. Okay, so here we are, we're going to stitch 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from our zipper teeth using stitch length of 2.4. Just going to move that pull out of the way so my zipper doesn't go wonky. Now we're just going to go back over to the ironing board and press that zipper pocket fabric away from the zipper teeth. So now that we have attached our zipper to the top of our zipper pocket, we're just going to press that fabric away from the zipper teeth. Okay, so now grab your second zipper pocket piece and we're just going to run another piece of double-sided tape along that top edge. Pull that off. Retrieve your zipper pocket and place wrong side of the zipper tape down onto the right side of your second zipper pocket piece along the top edge and press into place. Now we're just going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the zipper teeth. Okay, so here we are with our second side of our zipper, 3 mils 1/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth. Smooth this pull. Okay, so we're going back over to the ironing board and pressing that fabric away from the zipper teeth like before. Okay, now that we've stitched the second side of our zipper, we're just going to press the zipper pocket fabric away from our zipper teeth. Now retrieve your body lining piece with the zipper pocket window, and we're just going to run some double-sided tape along both sides of that window. Now retrieve your pocket again. Now if you want your zipper to open from left to right, you put that on the left side, or if you want it the other way, you can do it the other way. So now we're centering our pocket over the window, just getting that nice and even. Hard for me to see it without sticking my head over the top and then getting my head into the video, and I don't want that. Good thing about this double-sided tape, it is repositionable, so you can move it around all that you need to till you've got it right. And then what we need to do is stick a pin in here to hold the pocket fabric up on that side, and the bottom piece, we want that held over there so that when we stitch in the next step, our pocket pieces don't get caught in the stitching. So now we're going back to the sewing machine and we're stitching all the way around our box, 3 mils 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the window. Okay, so here we are again with our fabric right side up, our zipper pocket window. We're going to stitch all the way around this box, 3 mils 1/8 of an inch, top stitch length of 3.1, and I'm just going to back stitch to secure the threads. Back to where I started. And there we have it. We've stitched all the way around our window. We can remove these pins, snip some threads. Always snip your threads as you work. Now we're going back over to the work table so that we can finish the rest of our pocket. Okay, so now that we have stitched around our pocket window, we need to flip it over, and we'll just finger press that down. And what we need to do is trim that excess fabric off down here, level with the shorter piece. And now we're just going to press the seam allowances under on both of those pieces. get that to lay flat so I can match those edges. Okay, now we're just going to pin the pocket pieces, because we're going to stitch only the pocket pieces. Around this way. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch down this side and stitch down this side. Just going to swap back to my normal foot. So with my body lining facing up, I just fold it back out of the road to expose my zipper, and I'm just going to start stitching at the top there. I'm not going to worry about stitching from right at the top, just start stitching from where your pocket is. Stitch length of 2.4, so just shorten that up. Keep that pocket out of the way. Now that's stitched. We'll do the other side. We're leaving this bottom pressed edges open. That's where we're going to turn our bag through. And that's the second side, so we've left our pocket open like that, and as you can see when you look in, there's no zipper tape raw anywhere. It's a nice neat finished pocket. Okay, so now we're going to go back over to the work table and we're just going to snip off this excess fabric. Okay, so now that we have stitched our pocket, we've got the opening here. We're going to leave that open for now. We're just going to clip this excess fabric away at the top. There we go. And that's our completed zipper pocket. Nice neat finish. Woohoo! Okay. Okay, so now that we have prepared our two body lining pieces, this one has got the zipper pocket attached and the other one I've added pocket supplement A pockets. You can do that too if you like, or make your own slip pockets, or don't have any pockets. It's up to you. But anyway, moving right along, we'll put the two lining pieces right sides together. We're going to pin the two side edges. So we're going to pin the bottom edge as well. Now we're going to head back over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch both sides and the bottom. So now we're going to stitch our body lining using a 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stitch length 2.4. My pin cushion. Stitch the other body side. Now the bottom, again 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch seam. Okay, so now we're just going to head back over to the ironing board and press those seams open. Okay, so now that we've stitched our side seams and bottom, we're going to press those seams open. Like that. So now that we've pressed our seams open, we're going to form our corners. So you need to bring the bottom seam up and match your side seam and pin, and just match the corner up, pin, pin, do the same on the other side, And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch. Okay, so now we're going to stitch our corners. We're going to use a 1 centimetre, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Stitch length of 2.4. Keeping your seams pressed open. That's one corner. Now we do the other corner. Oops, I stitched clean over my pin. Okay, so now on to the next step. So now we need to mark the back centre. You can choose now what you want to have at the back of your bag, whether you want your zipper at the back of the bag or your pockets, if you have pockets. I'm going to put my pockets at the back of the bag. So I'm just going to put those together there and find the back centre. So there, I've marked the back centre of what I want to have as the back of my bag. Now turn your lining right side out. Like that. And grab your flap. Now we're going to put it lining side down, matching the centre marks. And now you can pin or clip. I'm just going to use some clips. Clip it together. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch my flap into place. Because I haven't got a free arm, I'm going to stitch it this way because it's easier. Feeling where my flap starts. Using a 1 centimetre, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, stitch length of 2.4. I just need to make sure that my flap stays in the right place. Oh, and I cut the thread. That was clever, wasn't it? Now it does get quite thick, and it might help to actually unzip your pocket here a bit so that that's lumps out of the way. Make sure your foam pocket stays down. If you're doing it facing up, it might be easier, you can see better. It gets thick here, so just go slow. Okay, so next step. Okay, so with your body exterior wrong sides out, we're going to measure and mark 1 centimetre in from the pocket. Now if you're stitching with a free arm, you'll probably be stitching this way around, and if you're stitching with a flat bed like me, I'm going to be stitching this way round. So depending on which way you're stitching, put your marks 1 centimetre. I've already marked it there, 1 centimetre in here, and for me I need to mark it on this side. So now we're going to grab our lining. Now it's very important that you open your zipper pocket, because that's where you're going to be turning your bag through. So make sure your zipper pocket is open. Now we're putting that right sides together inside your exterior body. We're going to join up your pockets. This is your phone pocket. Okay, so now I'm going to line up the side seams. That wants to slip out of the way, so I'm going to use a pin. They have a bit more hold than a clip. Do the same on this side. Put some clips here. On this side. Clip your lining. You may have to stretch your little lining a bit just to make it fit. Just a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch. Oh yeah, my marks are on this side. It's 1 centimetre from the edge there. So we're going to stitch down here, pivot, round the pocket, pivot, and all the way around your bag. So I've stuck my flatbed extension table on. Just makes it easier because it supports the bag nicely. So now I'm going to stitch my lining into my bag. Just going to start back here somewhere. Stitch length of 2.4. Back out of the road. Stitching up to my mark. and pivot. Pivot. Just go slow because it's all very awkward. Especially, like I said, if you've got a heap of junk behind your sewing machine like I do. Once you're finished sewing, you can go back and check if you've gone off somewhere where you haven't kept your seam allowance. You can fix it. And I just broke my thread. But that's alright, I've come to the end. So that was lucky. And there, so just go around and check. Now it's optional whether you do this or not, but I like to zigzag all the way around, obviously not in the area of the phone pocket, just end on each side of the phone pocket, but if you zigzag that flattens the soft and stable more, or if you haven't got zigzag, even just a row or two of straight stitches will flatten your soft and stable, or if you're keen you can trim it away. Okay, so now that we have our bag lining all stitched into place, we're going to turn our bags right side out through the hole that we left in our zipper pocket. Start by pulling out your lining a bit and away we go. It's a bit awkward and stiff, but you can do it. Just squish it. Very awkward when I have to do it in front of the video. It would be easier if I do not have to do it in front of the video. Who needs a diet when you have a workout like that? Make sure you get in there and push all that out properly. Run your fingers along the seam. Right, your phone pocket, the thread there to trip off. Now, push your lining down inside, check everything, all good. Now, need to push it all down, just get rid of that pocket for now, we'll pull it back out afterwards. Okay, so now with everything pushed back in there, we want to make sure that this seam is right at the top. So just roll that down with your fingers, and I'm just going to use a few pins to hold into place. Make sure it stays. You can use clips if you prefer. I just find the pins do a better job of holding it. Okay, so we're going to go over to the machine and we're going to start where we've ended up our top stitching before and go around the bag, back over, finishing at the other top stitching, which is just on the edges of your phone pocket. I'm going to swap to my Bernina because it has the free arm, just because it's a lot easier to sew. Otherwise, if I was going to do it with my flatbed, I would have turned it inside out and done it that way. Okay, so now we're going to top stitch around the top of our bag. Just going to bring this up, line it up where I finished off last time with our top stitching. And I'm stitching with a top stitch length of 3.1 and 6 mils, 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the bag. Squish that bag out of the road. Bag is very stiff, so it's a little bit awkward. Let's sort of maneuver that around. flap is in the way. Just have to pull at it and shove things around to make it work. Okay, so I'm back to my previous top stitching where we stitched there just for looks. Obviously we're not going to stitch our phone pocket shut, so we're just going to finish off there. And there we have our top stitched bag. So now we need to pull our zipper pocket back out. We're just going to align the edges, use pins or clips to hold. I'm just going to grab some pins. Oh, bent one. Okay, so now we're going to go back over to the sewing machine and just edge stitch along there to close the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to stitch the bottom of our zipper pocket shut right along the edge. I'm going to use a top stitch length of 3. Now I suggest you just check both sides to make sure that it hasn't slipped away and there's an opening in your pocket anywhere, and that hasn't, so all good. And that's that one done. Now we're getting very close to finishing our bag. Woohoo! Okay, so now we're going to mark the position of our rivets onto our strap tabs. I'm using this strap marker by J. Lily Handmade. It's very, very handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this first one pretty close to the top. I'm using a correction pen paper marker just to make a little white dot in there if it comes out, so I know where to poke my rivet. Poke my rivet. Now skip 3 holes. You can do whatever spacing you like, but this is what I'm doing, skipping 3 holes. Just check that that's, yep, that's marked it for me. And the same with this one. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. And there we go. I think I need a new pen. But anyway, that's done it. So now I'm going to go away and punch some holes through my cork. Okay, so now I've gone and done all this without remembering to turn on my camera, so I'll just explain what I've done because I don't feel like redoing it all. Okay, so we're going to make the top edge of our strap tab level with the top edge of our bag and just mark those holes. I'm using the J Lily handmade strap marker again, and I'm just using the holes to mark my rivet points like that with my pen. And then I've just gone and grabbed a pin and poked it through each hole and just checked inside to make sure that it was going to be in the right place in the lining, and not that the lining had shifted to the side and then we're punching a hole in our lining. That's not a good idea because that will obviously undermine the integrity of the seam if we punch holes in it. So just check that with each one and pin your lining into place to make sure it stays where you want it to be. Do the same on this side, and then we're going to go away now and punch the holes. Okay, so now that I've punched my holes in my bag, I'm going to add my rivets. Let's get some of these caps out. So well, it helps if you put the strap tab in. So just poke that through. And then you can see the little nobules poking through there. You just put the cap on top. I'm just going to click it into place to hold until we press it with our rivet press. You know you've got the right shaft length if just that little end nobule of your rivet is poking through. If more than that's poking through, it's too long, and if you really don't get anything poking through, it's too short. Needs to be just the nice little end. When you compress the layers around it, that little end needs to poke out. Just clip them there. I'm going to take those pins away before I stab myself. Now I do that with the other side. Grab my strap tab. Stick it together. The last one. Hope you can see that. Usually you can hear a click, but I didn't hear. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to take those pins out again. I really don't want to stab myself. Grab my rivet press. Now you can feel when it's sitting in that thing underneath there. And now we just need to press. Next one. And the third one. And we have one side done. Turn it round. Do the second side. Find when it's seated in that. There we go. There, now we have our strap tabs in place. Now it's optional, but you may like to add a rivet on either side of your phone pocket. That's what I've done here. Okay, so now we want to make our strap for our bag, so we need to grab our slider and we're going to put our strap through it. One end of the strap through the slider, like that, and then just pull it through enough, and I'm going to go away and punch a hole with my hole punch for a rivet. If you don't want to rivet yours, you can stitch a box with an X through it to hold it in place. So I'll just go away and punch my hole. Okay, so now that we have our bag and we want to add our strap, the first thing we're going to have to decide is which side you would like to have your strap adjuster on. I'm going to put it on this side, so that's the side that we need to go through first. You're going through with the wrong side of your strap, so work out which is your wrong side, and that wrong side is up, so you pull that through, and then that goes through your slider. Wrong sides are together, and back through the other side of the slider, like that, and then just keep pulling it through. That, and now the other end goes around and through the rectangular ring like that, and then wrong sides together. Put it through by 1.5 inches or so, and then grab a couple of clips, clip to hold, and then go away and add 2 rivets, which is what I shall do now. If you don't want to use rivets, then you stitch a rectangular box on there. Okay, so now we're going to add our strap end to the end of our zipper trim. I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue in there. Smear it around. And as usual, I got some on my finger. I'm such a messy person. Okay, so now just poke that onto there. Making sure it goes all the way in on both sides. And now make sure it's even too. And now we need to add our little screws. So we'll grab those. Tiny little things that they are. Ah, fiddly. Try and make sure that they're upright. You don't want it to go in at an angle, because if they go in at an angle you won't get them all in as far as they're meant to go. And there we have it. So that is our nice trim on the end of our zipper trim. And now all we've got left to do is make our tassel and we are done. Woohoo! How good is that? Okay, so now we're going to make our tassel, and the first thing I'm going to do is just double check that that's going to fit inside my cap, because there are different size caps and that's going to be too fat to fit in there, so I'm going to cut a little bit off. I think maybe, hang on, I need to try that a bit tighter. I think that would be about good, so I'm going to cut about 3/4 of an inch off. Okay, so now it's going to be a much smaller tassel. I'm just going to draw a line 1/2 inch down from the top. That's where I'm going to cut to. And so using this, I'm going to cut little 1/8 of an inch snips into my cork. Up to about that line. Doesn't matter if it's exact or not. Yeah, now I need a bit of paper to cut. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that area there. That's too much for there, so I'm going to put the rest of it inside this tassel cap. Like that. Now I'm going to roll my tassel up as tight as I can. And then I'm going to poke it inside my tassel cap, like that. It has to have it. It does come with a little hole and a little screw if you want to add that, but I'm not going to, because 9 times out of 10 when I try and add a screw, it just goes in crooked or doesn't go in all the way. Decide which side you want to add it to. Clip it on. Woohoo! How's that? We're done. Yes!